Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So we just had a pretty significant update here on the preview test server, where we have the Pirate Skyhold with the new dungeon, campaign, and a load of new gear and items to obtain. So let's get into the details from the devs. First of all, just some general updates, particularly with the Spine Devil. That will no longer trigger with, say, Icy Terrain and Hellfire Ring on the dot effects. So anything other than the first hit won't trigger it. However, with the class powers like Path of the Blade on the Rogue, that is actually supposed to be able to trigger on each hit, and so we'll be getting fixed to actually then trigger combat enchantments on those following effects. And then, most notably, the new tri-stat enchantments have had their stat values revised. So before I made a video discussing them, they gave a 1 stat, and like the Mother of Pearl was going to give all crit strike and more of it than, say, a Jade. So what they're doing now is actually making them 3 stat enchantments, which is great. Then they at least are somewhat unique, different enchantments to what we have. And sure, in total, they will give still 540 more rating points than some other enchantments. But at least it's not like a direct replacement. Like if I had a Jade, you could clearly see this one was superior, just giving it the same stat, but a bit more of it when you had it in the offense slot. So that's good to see. They're now triple stat enchantments, which will still be useful and technically best in slot with a little bit more rating points. So the Mother of Pearl there will have the accuracy, crit strike, crit severity, while in defense, awareness, crit avoidance, and deflect severity, and while in utility, forte, control bonus, and outgoing healing. The other enchantment, which we haven't yet purchased, is the Bismuth, giving the accuracy, combat advantage, crit severity in offense, defense, awareness, and deflect in defense, and then control bonus, incoming healing, and outgoing healing as utility. So some useful mix of stats there, depending if you're a tank, or healer, or a DPS. Overall, I personally won't be switching to them, even though they are best in slot. If you're a newer player, could be advised to do so, because those extra rating points may very well give you an edge. But moving on with the patch notes, we can see for the Dread Sanctum, this being the new dungeon, there were just some various fixes there. The boss should reset properly when you say wipe and come back, with then like less of those tentacles appearing, and they should also have a bit less hit points. And the mini-maps getting fixed, and some other just general bug fixes. In this dev post, we did get some known issues posted here, which is good to see that they're announcing them, and they still do have time to get them fixed, and they may very well have got most of those fixed, as they did with, say, the tentacles with this new update. But then we have mount powers, a pretty massive update here, which is really good to see. A lot of them had their target caps standardized. Now, 4 months ago, I made a video on testing the multi-target mounts, and we found most of them only had a target cap of like 5 or 8. And so there wasn't actually that many mounts that were any good. Most of them now are actually going up to a target cap of 15. Maybe even all of them. I haven't cross-reference just yet, but some notable ones are like the Arcane Whirlwind, along with a bunch of fixes there with regards to how it deals its damage. Your Cauldron and Deadly Drider form, they'll have a target cap of 15. They already had one, but that target cap was actually getting split between enemies and allies. So if you had lots of allies, it basically wouldn't really deal any damage, or it might not buff your allies. So that's very good to see that. And we have some more fixes here with the Black Unicorn and Omen of Despair. They have like a bit of a vortex ability that would be target cap 15. The same thing happens with like the Pegasus, still a target cap of 15, but now there's a target cap of 425 for allies. So again, rather than it being all together with a total of 15, it's now split, meaning it should be a lot more reliable at dealing damage. And we, yes, do have an update to the Vortex, the legendary flying carpet. Where is that? Here we are. So it's now having, instead of 8, a 15 target cap. So it will be very competitive with, say, the Space Guppy School mount. Still won't be as good because it doesn't have the daze effect. Although be aware that the legendary flying carpet's magnitude is going up to 800. So it will actually be a bit more damaging than the Space Guppy School mount. But I'll put a link in the video description. You can read through that for yourself. But yeah, most of them just fixes with regards to getting their target caps updated, and otherwise a few notes here and there. I may very well read it through it myself some more. But again, that is awesome to see. The devs did announce they were going to go over this and like update them significantly because a lot of them were underperforming. Oh, but be aware, the Celestial Wings are getting a big change. They're going from a 80-foot length and 80-foot radius cylinder, which was absolutely massive, down to just a 30-foot radius sphere centered on the player. Will still be good, but you won't be hitting guys like halfway across the map, which is fair enough. And then with the single target mount power, Big B's Crushing Hand, it had its cast time reduced from a whopping 1.5 seconds down to 0.6 seconds. This is awesome. You no longer will get like stuck in the animation or having to require to animation cancel it for it to feel good. And now we'll just quickly cast and you can continue on your way. You'll probably still be able to animation cancel it slightly, but that is a really, really good change. You're not going to get stuck for what feels like forever casting that one versus other mounts. But from here, we're going to move to Warlock changes, part 2. We can see the notes here from Brett Norton, and they went ahead with this Soul Spark change. So now only your at-wills will generate Soul Sparks. No longer will you gain any from, say, encounter powers or critically hitting, which does mean your at-wills are going to give a lot more Soul Sparks, like Eldritch Blast. Each of the first hits are going to give 1, and then the third hit's going to give 3. Hellish Rebuke's going to give 2 per dot hit, and if you use No Pity, No Mercy, it will now generate 3 every time you attack. And like Hand of Blight, the ranged attack is going to give 2 Soul Sparks per attack, and the melee attack 1 per attack, and then 3 on the like final hit of the combo. A lot of main Warlock players in endgame are not too happy about that, because that does then hurt multi-target damage. You won't be able to really use your Soul Scorch in multi-target when all you're really doing is casting encounter powers and everything's dead before you really switch to using at-wills. It helps with, say, newer players and clarity of the class to how it works, but for an endgame min-maxer who's been used to using encounter powers for the most part to generate Soul Sparks, this slows things down quite a bit, now requiring you to use at-wills significantly more, whereas before it was primarily for support effect. They barely dealt any damage, and they were mainly there just to generate Soul Sparks to be able to cast Soul Scorch more often to take advantage of Soul Spark recovery to get the cooldown reduction to spam more encounter powers. But with these changes, that meta has shifted a lot, and you're now more competitive to use Wrathful Souls for a flat damage boost, and then you're back to a pretty generic class, just casting encounter powers when they come off cooldown and at-wills in between, which kind of makes it pretty basic to play Warlock. I will cover some testing on it as we approach the module launch. I just want to give them a little bit of time to adapt with, say, their changes before I get into any heavy testing. But you can see those at-will changes here: Hand of Blight, Hellish Rebuke, and then Arms of Hatter and Counter Power got a bit of a magnitude increase there, which is nice. So now it's 175, and the cooldown debuff duration has been decreased down to just 10 seconds, meaning you should be able to use it a bit more. It's a pretty cool ability. You smack your enemies with a hand, but yeah, the more time you use it, then the longer the cooldown gets, and I believe the maximum is 10 seconds. Then your Fiery Bolt and Counter Power, just a decent magnitude increase up to 350. Nice multi-target attack, basically the same as Fireball on Wizard. But then we have the changes to Hellfire Ring that, again, veteran players are not too happy about. It will no longer stack Soul Investiture through Power of the Nine Hells. Basically, you were able to get all of the stacks of Soul Investiture very quickly with this ability, meaning you could easily get your 20% multiplicative damage boost. The initial hit will still trigger the effect, but the damage over time won't, and it also won't trigger Creeping Death. It got a pretty heavy nerf with regards to not being able to trigger all of your other effects. Like, it's not going to trigger companion bonuses like the Spine Devil anymore. It's not going to trigger your feats anymore. It's now just a standard encounter power with a damage over time effect. With that, the power of the 9 Hells feat did get changed so that other powers also won't be able to trigger it if they don't trigger, say, combat enchantments. Then your Creeping Death feat, this has been reworked a bit to compensate for the Hellfire Ring change. So now it only needs 5 stacks, and each stack is going to be 25 magnitude. So it has a little bit more maximum damage and a lot easier to stack up. And then your Executioner's Gift feat is going up to 30% damage boost, meaning that's like 15% average. You gain no benefit when your target's full HP, and you gain 30% when they're basically no HP. So average 15% damage, which is neat. And we will have to look at the competition between Creeping Death and that, but usually Executioner's Gift wins when you're looking at burst damage. And it will now actually affect daily powers, so that's very good, especially since they did improve the daily powers so they have a lot more magnitude. Like, you can use this one, it's going to be up to 2100 magnitude, or you could still stick with your Tyrannical Curse with the extra damage bonus. They did also fix Brood of Hador, has a good stun with it too, and spawning all those imps which can do some decent damage. But overall, that is it for the updates to the preview server. Again, just want to highlight those new enchantments did get reworked. They will now be just triple stat enchantments. They will have more ratings than, say, single stat enchantments, but that's to be expected, as that's the same as we've had before. Like, Mountain of Flame also has triple stat enchantments, and they also have a little bit more stats than our previous ones. So we've had that already, and that's all right, I guess. Same item level, just a teeny bit more ratings if you wanted to go for that. And otherwise, some significant updates to mounts here, with a great adjustment to Big Biz Hand. The cast time is significantly lower, much more friendly to cast. So with that said, thanks for watching. A special thank you to all these channel members for your extra support, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now. Oh, and yes, somebody did ask about my appearance. That's it right here. I just threw it together because I had screwed up, say, my general gear appearance for that one specific video. And otherwise, yeah, you can see my item level is nearly 200,000, and that's just because I currently have these preview only stat rings because it's funny and makes questing here super easy, and that's pretty much what gives you it. Again, testing only items on the preview server.